Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Lindsay Birch, and on this channel we talk about a few things. We talk about Bible stories and we talk about kingdom marriages particularly. So if you're unfamiliar with this term, kingdom marriage, it's this term that refers to any marriage that God has brought together for a specific purpose in order to advance the kingdom of God in the earth. So that could look like anything from Isaac and Rebecca being brought together in a God-led way in order to advance the Abrahamic promise and covenant, or it could look like anyone living in modern times that God brings together in order to bring two people together to do ministry together, or to accomplish something that he wants done in the world one way or another. And so I know that there are many people who follow this channel, including myself, who are praying for a kingdom marriage. We are wanting to give our lives to God, and we're wanting to be married to somebody who also wants to live their lives on mission and with a purpose to serve God and to do that together even more powerfully. And so if this is a vision that you have for your life, stick around. We're going to talk about a really powerful couple that lived about 100 or so years ago, and their names are Ellen and James White. So let's set the scene here. We're talking about 1844. The Great Disappointment has hit the United States of America in particular, and this was a time where a group of people called Millerites, they followed a man called William Miller, who discovered how to put together some of the prophecies in Daniel and in the Bible. They believed that Jesus was going to come and take people home to heaven around October 22, 1844. Now, obviously that didn't take place. We're all still here today. We're not up in heaven at the moment. So there were a large group of people who were very disappointed that Jesus didn't come for them. What happened? Why didn't he turn up? We read the prophecies. Why isn't he here? And so there were quite a few people who left, who stopped following these ideas, but there were also a fair few people who dug deeper into the Bible and were wondering, where did we go wrong? We understand the prophecies, like what are we missing here? And so with this group of believers who were disappointed but still hopeful and still wondering and still believing in God, out of this group of people, of this fragmented bunch of Millerites, there was a young girl called Ellen Gould Harmon. God chose her to be his messenger to his people. And so Ellen began to receive visions, and then she began to be invited to speak and to share her visions in churches or in homes and in various public settings. And so as she began to travel and to share what God had showed to her, another young man, who his name is James White, he was about 22 at this time, he heard of the visions that Ellen White was sharing, not Ellen White at this point, Ellen Harmon was sharing, and he thought, hey, I believe that these visions are true. I believe that God has spoken to her. And now he was a young preacher within the Christian Connexion group at the time. So he would travel around and he would preach in different places, and he thought to himself, you know what? I think she's the genuine thing from God, and I want to travel and preach alongside her. Now, at the very beginning, and this we're talking about is 1845, they begin doing ministry together without any romantic thoughts towards each other. However, that did begin to grow at some point, and it got to the point where, as they were traveling together, always with a female chaperone, whether it was Ellen's sister Sarah or other faithful friends, as they traveled together, people's minds started turning and their tongues started wagging, and gossip began to grow, and people accused them of misconduct, and it wasn't true. But James heard what was going on, and he decided, hey, look, we can't risk having a bad reputation as we're trying to represent God. So we have two options here. Either we go our separate ways and you find somebody else to do ministry with you, or we get married. And probably by this point, they actually liked each other a little bit more than just friends. And so they decided, yep, let's get married. Now, a little bit of a backtrack to this. James was a very practical and very dedicated man, dedicated to serving God. And so they'd just recently gone through this great disappointment. They had expected to be taken to heaven, and that didn't happen. And they thought, well, maybe it will happen still in the near future. And so there was a group of these people who actually were writing against young couples who were Adventists, who were waiting for Jesus to come back for them, saying, why are you getting married? You shouldn't be getting married. This is a distraction. This is a wile of the devil, in quotations. And he was against young couples getting married because they were denouncing their faith, he thought. A little while after this, he's getting married himself. So he became a little bit more practical, a little bit more in touch with reality of maybe we're going to be here a little bit longer and it's not actually evil to get married. So they get married, and as they were courting, as they were getting married, some people have reported that their friendship and their relationship, their courtship was a model for other young people around them. They just had such a beautiful godliness about them that it was an encouragement to other young people. So James and Ellen White were a powerful gospel team. She was considered the revivalist and he was the organizer. She was the evangelist and he was the master builder. She was the prophet and he was the apostle. This is how they worked and functioned together as a unified team. So James was so organized and so well trusted and so faithful and zealous and dedicated to his work that he ended up beginning publishing with absolutely nothing, based on a revelation that Ellen White received from God. And she said, hey James, you need to start this paper. It's going to start very small with basically nothing, and it's going to turn into this massive thing that just blesses so many people around the world. So they began that, and it's just so interesting to see how God spoke through Ellen, and then James had the skills and the abilities and the business acumen in order to get the job done. And so it was a powerful, powerful team. And without Ellen and James, we would not have the Seventh-day Adventist publishing that we have. And without the publishing, there would be no unification, especially in those early years of the Adventist groups around the United States and then further afield later on. There would be no unification of thought and theology and identity of a group. There would be so much fracturing. There would be so many little groups in little places in this time before the internet and before the telephone and everything. There would be absolutely no way to maintain a group identity, and it would be very difficult for everyone to be able to know that they believed all the same thing being taught by the same group, and it would have been very difficult to keep that unified, right? So the publishing was super important, and that came as a revelation through Ellen and practically put in place through James. And then they also started education for the Adventist groups through revelations through Ellen and organization through James. They received revelation around the health message through Ellen, and then that was being shared with the help of the organization of James. And so on and on it goes. In the Adventist world, in the Christian denomination of Seventh-day Adventists, there would be no power, there would be no organization, there would be no such revelation that could work together if these two did not come together in marriage. Like maybe if they were separate in their own separate marriages or as single individuals for the rest of the time, they probably could have worked together, but being married, I think, really helped things move along a lot quicker and a lot more powerfully and effectively. And James himself, he received rebukes and revelations from God through Ellen, and he respected it and he acted on it, and it actually helped him. This turned up in areas regarding his own health, his own attitude sometimes, because he was such a zealous guy that sometimes it came down as, you know, being critical and overbearing. And so he was able to receive the instruction and revelation from his own wife, the messenger of God. So I just want to encourage you, for anyone out there who is praying for a kingdom marriage, it may or may not look like Ellen and James. They came from a very different time and place than we are in right now, and This was for a specific purpose that God had for them to do in leading this tiny little group of disbanded and discouraged Adventists to become a worldwide church that is the most worldwide church around the globe right now. We have more people in more countries around the world sharing the same vision because of these two working together all that long time ago. So, God might use you for something similar, or it might be something smaller, it might be something very different, and only God can reveal that to you. But I want to encourage you to give your life over to God, to submit yourself, to follow him, to serve him, because they came together because they were doing ministry together. They ended up getting married within a year of meeting each other and working together, because that's just what it required at that time for them. You don't know where your life might lead you, but if you submit yourself to God and if you submit your love life to God, he might use you in a similar and powerful way.